What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first part of the my PSD to HTML cutout tutorial. We're going to dive right in. Typically when I start cutting out a website, I go with putting the content into HTML first. So what I'm going to be doing right now is we're going to look at our PSD. We're going to be looking at the different elements on the page. For instance, the header, the body, and all the various content on that we will have on our page, and getting an idea of what elements we'll use where. So to start off, we're going to look at our header, which is right up here. And so just at a quick glance, we see that it's going to be, with our measurements, it's going to be 960 pixels wide. We have a graphic up here, which is our company title. We have a navigation menu over here. So most likely what we'll do is we'll put this inside of an H1 tag. This is typically the title of your website for various markup reasons and SEO purposes. Your main title needs to be inside of an H1. Over here we have our navigation menu. We're going to be using a nav element for it with an unordered list of A tags or hyperlink tags. We're going to have a rotator right here, so we're going to split this into its own separate div section, and we'll in a later video we'll actually cut this part out and make a jQuery plugin rotator for it. We have a lot of uppercase text. We're gonna put that. We're gonna plug that in standard camel case. We'll use CSS to make it capitalized. So this is probably going to be plugged in as an H2 with a there's a highlight in here of a green. This is I'm probably going to use a span tag to identify the color for this. Then down here we have another set of elements. I'm probably going to use an unordered list on. If you look close at these are circles with 1 pixel border, and then I believe it's a 10 pixel circle, and then our inner circle. We're going to use CSS3 to make this whole element, with the exception of the icon, an HTML CSS element. So we'll have a wrapping element with a 1 pixel border, and then inside that we're going to have a green element, and round the borders out so that if you don't have CSS3 compatible browser, it's going to show a big square box. But with the browsers we're going to be targeting, it'll look like a circle, so it'll look nice. These are more capitalized items. We'll use header tags for those, probably H3s or H4s. And same for the ones down here. I don't feel like using a div or a span tag for these, since it looks like a block element, a block level tag. Here's another header element. We'll use a span tag inside of this one also. Alright, sorry about that. So down here we're gonna use a list item. An unordered list, since it's a list of various services of this company. We'll create kind of not exactly a utility class system for it, but they'll have very simple markup for it. We'll reuse the same header tag that we had up here for this one down here. Another unordered list of elements for these various advertisers. And then down here we have a subfooter with a little about us, follow us, archives, contact us, sign up for newsletter, and then we have the very base footer. Now, one thing to point out about this PSD is that the fonts on it are not web friendly, which is okay. We're going to substitute with Arial. There's various ways of importing your fonts into websites, but just for the ease of this, we are going to just use Arial, an Arial font stack, and what else was it? Oh, there's a textured background here that's fairly easy to see up close. It's kind of inconsistent. I may try and get a good pattern on it so that we can use it. Otherwise, I may just fall back to an off-white for that, just for ease of time, since it takes forever. So let's hop into our HTML. I'm using Visual Studio with a VS Vim plugin. It allows you to move your cursor and everything using your keyboard. For me, it helps me code a lot faster. So I've already cut out the site already, so I'm going to be using my other copy of it to copy and paste in text. Typically you would select your text tool and just select it. It's going to complain that I don't have the font, and highlight, copy this, then come over here and paste it. Instead of doing that, I'm just going to I'm just gonna copy and paste it over from my other file. Alright, so while we're looking at this page, we're gonna have a large element up here that's gonna span 100% of our page, and so we're gonna to make it more semantic and readable, we're gonna use the HTML5 header tag. Then inside of it, we're gonna use a div to contain our 960 pixel width. Have a header 1 over here and our nav element, so we'll code that out real fast. Header, and then we're gonna have the div, have the h1, and for SEO and users who have CSS turned off, which is highly rare, we'll put that. We're going to put the text of that image inside this tag. We're going to use an Html5 Nav tag for our navigation. I'm going to give it a class so that I can target it specifically. I'm going to give it a class in main menu and give the unordered list of our navigation elements. So it's going to be an li with an a, href for the hyperlink. I'm going to set it to pound since we don't have any URLs for these specifically. So I'm going to copy those lines. Let's see, there's 5 of them. I'm going to go in and copy and paste over each one of the list items, each one of the nav elements. Products, features. So when I go over to my web page, I'm using Firefox with Firebug. We hit that and we get a very plain looking web page right now, but we have our unordered list with our link items and our large text header. Now we're going to dive down into the rotator section. I'm going to put an HTML comment in here so that when I'm going through this file, I'm going to be able to find and know where my rotator starts. Now in Visual Studio, you can highlight your text and do Control-K, Control-C to comment it. I'm going to add some tabs to it so that it is easier to read and see. I'm just going to do div with an ID of rotator and a class of rotator, all small caps. Now the reason why I did this is because I want to target it with JavaScript, and it's faster from on the browser to target an ID. And so I'm gonna, when we get to the JavaScript side of this, I'm gonna select it by ID, and then I'm gonna use the class for CSS reasons. We're gonna skip over all the content inside the rotator for now. We'll do that in a later video. Now we're going to do the main content of the actual site. So this is going to be from here all the way down to this subfooter. And so I'm going to give it, I'm going to put a div. If you, in Visual Studio, if you do div C and then hit tab, it's going to automatically write out your class attributes. I'm going to name it content. And then we have the welcome to my minimalist business theme. We're going to give the header 2 tag like we said earlier. So if you type H2 and then tab inside Visual Studio, it's going to give you a snippet to finish out the tag. Then, like I said earlier, we're going to put a span tag in here with that highlighted green. And so the reason why we use a span tag, just a plain span tag instead of like a div or anything like that, is a span tag is an inline element, whereas a div or a header tag is considered a block element. That means it essentially pushes it down to another line inside your markup, or when your page renders. But let's say, for instance, some people will use like a utility class and give this a class of blue or green, and inside of CSS will target it that way and give it a color corresponding with it. I like being able to update the whole look of my website without touching the HTML. And so when I look at, if I see a div with a class of content, I'm realizing it's content. If I see a div with a class of let's say, portfolio item, I want to know I'm actually looking at it instead of alive FL, or with a class of FL for float left, and it's your MR for margin right of 20 pixels or whatever. And so if we do this inside our CSS, we can do H2 and span and give it a specific color, and down the line change it without having to change any of our markup here. So our next batch of elements, these are going to be our services. And so I'm going to give it a class of services. And then we're going to do another unordered list because it's a list of services, and so that it's a little bit easier to read. I'm going to give it an li. And so when we're looking at this, we're going to have an outer div that's going to be background white with a 1 pixel border. And then we're going to have an inner disk, which is going to be this green one. And then we're going to have another div, which is going to be the actual icon. I like using background images to render images like this that aren't specific content. That way we could, like I had said earlier, we can update the CSS and replace this with something besides a recycle sign. Say you find a better looking icon, you can just upload the new icon and upload your CSS without having to change your markup. So for instance, on this one, we're going to do, I'm going to give it a div with a class of disk outer for the white one, and disk inner for the inside one. And then I'm going to type icon because I'm going to use a class to be able to target each one of these elements, or each one of these icons. And for now, I'm going to leave that as is. And then we have 2 header tags. I'm going to use a header 3 and a header 5 for these. And so I'm going to go ahead and type those out. Since we have commonality here, I'm going to write my markup and then copy and paste it 4 times. So this first one is for amazing support. So I'm going to give the icon an additional class of amazing because it's relevant to the content inside of it. Also, just a real quick tip for you: if you're ever in a situation where you're cutting out from a PSD or updating text, always copy and paste straight from the document. Don't type it out. A lot of the times these editors don't have spell check on them, so just do yourself a favor and cover your tails. Since this isn't something for actual for an actual client or anything, I'm typing it out. But for business purposes or professional services, you're going to want to copy and paste from an actual source. So anyway, our second item is 24-hour support, or 24-hour availability. So I'm going to just give the icon a class of hour, and then it's 24-hour usability. Then our next one was web design. So I'm going to give it an icon of web. And type, oh, I'm in the wrong one. Well, we'll just move this down here real fast. And then I'm going to format my document. This one is mobile, so I'm going to do mobile and mobile. Alright, I'm going to save all this, and we're going to refresh our page, look at it, and so we have our subheader. It's just a little bit smaller than our header one. We have each one of our list items. So if we were actually reading this as a document, it kind of makes sense. You could kind of traverse your way through it and figure out what you're wanting to do. Okay, our next item is relatively unique. Oh, never mind. Okay, so it's relatively unique because we have this dashed line going through. I'm going to turn off some layers to see if we can see it easier. Let's see. Nope, that didn't work out so well. But there is a dashed line going through the middle of this header element. So I am going to have, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to have a div that spans the whole thing with a background image repeating in the center. And this text right here, I'm going to put this in its own element and use margins and padding to overlay it on top of the background, and I'm going to give it a different background so that it overwrites it. I think this was another reason why I wanted to stray away from using this texture background, because it's easier to do without it. And so I don't remember if the one down here does the same thing. Yeah, this one down here does the same thing. So since there's commonality there, I want to use similar classes so my markup looks consistent. So I'm going to call it a subheader. And since I haven't used one yet, I'm going to use an H4. Recent from span. Portfolio. And then we have our portfolio items. Now, I said I was going to use an unordered list. I'm just going to go with divs instead. So I'm going to type, much like the other one, I am going to cut out one. I'm going to cut out, or I'm sorry, I'm going to do one and just copy and paste it a couple times, and then when we cut out, I'll update the text, or update the image right here, and as we go through, I'll update the text. So I'm going to have a div. I'm going to call it portfolio item. So I have the div, and which is going to wrap this whole thing. I'm going to have an image tag that's going to float left, and then I'm going to have a batch of elements over here. And so I'm going to do an image. We'll fill that out after we do cut out. We're going to use an H5. I'm going to leave blank right now because each one has a different title. Then we're going to have a link for video. There's different ones in each one of these, but we're just going to do video and then interview. Just to get this going a little bit faster. And then we have some lorem ipsum, which is a common filler for web text. This is another reason why I prefer to do content before doing my CSS, is that this is eventually going to change, and I want to I want to have the actual stuff before actually doing markup, because heights and widths of content can really skew a design. Portfolio. I'm going to comment that so it's easier to find. Alright, I'm going to copy this 4 times. Our first one is business cards, and then we have, what was the other one? Moo mini cards. I had to double check that one because that sounded a little weird. We have Say It in Print. Oh, I missed another one somewhere. Oh, yep, I missed the first one. Since it's just an example, it's no big deal. I'm still going to go ahead and move it back down to the bottom where it fits. So it's still all readable. Now, next in our PSD, we have our major advertisers. I am going to use a list item for that. So I'm going to use the same markup I used for that other subheader with that interesting background. Equals sub H4. I'm going to do our major span advertisers. Now I'm going to do a UL with a class equaling advertisers. Now I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste these from another my other document just for ease. Right now I'm going to go under the assumption these are just images and not links. Otherwise we would just wrap these in A tags. Gonna leave the images in there just to speed up the process. Alright, now if we go over here, we're gonna refresh and we just get our empty list. Capitalize our major. And now that is done with our content. I'm going to leave out the arrow and this pull down thing up here just because I don't see the need for them in this particular instance and save on time. So we have our subfooter and our base footer. I'm going to call this one footer and this one base footer. And I'm going to leave out some stuff just for time reasons. We're just going to do this first one, and then the items here are pretty straightforward by the time we get to the other ones. So I'm going to use the footer tag just so I can. Class is footer. See, I'm going to do footer content. The reason I'm doing this is I'm going to set the width of footer content to 960 and center align it so we get that 960 width. And we're going to use a child CSS selector so that each one of these columns is a div and they're consistently sized. And we won't have to attach a class to it. It's just another technique of selecting elements. So I'm going to use a header 5 for each one of these uppercase sections. So this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one. We have our lorem ipsum right here, and then H5. It's going to be follow us. div of social links. Now we're going to give it it's going to be an unordered list of icons essentially. I'm going to copy and paste this one over too, since we have so many items, and it's kind of get the point by now. So we have Facebook, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo, Dribble, yeah, and MSN, which I don't know if that's MSN Messenger or whatever, or if it's MySpace Network or something like that. I don't know. Then, so after this div, we have another column, which contains our archives. The next column contains contact us. I don't need a class on it, so I'm going to highlight it. This one is going to be sign to newsletter. Sign to newsletter. Okay. Alright, so if we go back to our web page, we have our different items. Just so you know, typically the way how I would do this in my development environment, if I pull up my screen resolution on another. So at home right now I have 4 monitors. I have this primary one, I have one to my left, one to the right, and one on top. So typically what I would have in monitor 2 is my web page. Monitor 4 would be Photoshop. My code editor would be right here, and then this one is more so for fun. At home I watch my daughter sleep to make sure she's still asleep, or if she gets up she needs me or whatever. So typically I would say the ideal monitor setup is 3. If you have 4, yay, put YouTube up there or your music stuff. So yeah, quick fun tip for you, I guess. Then our next footer, so far as I know, we'll run this through an HTML validator real fast. I'm pretty sure you can have multiple footers on a page. So we'll give this a try. I haven't run any of this through an HTML5 validator or an HTML validator, but we will, just to see how it holds up to their standards. May learn a thing or two also. So this is going to be our base footer content again, which is pretty consistent with this design. Our elements are spanning the entire page, and we're constrained to 960, so I'm going to have a sub item here, or a sub element. And then we're going to have a footer nav, which is almost a replication of the top one, which we're just going to do a list of hyperlinks. And then we have our copyright, which is 2013. Alright, reserved. Control D to format everything. All editors have different ways of formatting their content to make sure that your alignments, your tabs, and all that stuff are correct. And so if we go back over to our web page, everything's readable from the top down. You can tell what you're looking at. Nothing's really obscure with images or anything like that. So we have a pretty good setup right now. So what I'm going to do right now, I can almost guarantee that they will ding us on not having a source and not having an alt. But let's go ahead and check out update. Check out how it holds up to the W3C markup validator. So we'll do direct input. Check. Alright, so we had 11 errors with 3 warnings. So our title tag must not be empty. So we can solve that real fast. This is what shows up on the very, very top of the page. And so that's right here, right up here. You can see my cutout now. Bad value attribute, bad value, bad value. This is typical due to us not having an element in there. No alt, no alt, no alt, no alt, no alt, no alt. So when we add polish to it, we'll update these with alt tags and the proper images. And what were our errors? Or our warnings? Alright, I may be overlooking something. So anyway, it looks like we're in good shape in terms of our markup. On our next video, we will be doing the actual asset cutout with Photoshop. I'll show you how to cut out images and optimize them for web. So really appreciate the view. Please leave some feedback, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.